right, now on to the exciting part of the call. I would love to introduce you to our guest expert today, Nathaniel Bibby. Nathaniel is going to be speaking to us about using LinkedIn for business. I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself and get going. If you have any questions at all, chuck them in the chat. We will be referring back to them later in the call. Thanks, Nathaniel.
Thanks so much for having me. I can see most of your faces, I think. So is it, I know I can recognize Najma there. Anybody else heard me speak before? Oh, okay, great. All right, I'll give you a bit of a background. I've been in digital marketing for almost 20 years now. And I'll just give you a bit of background as to how I came across LinkedIn. I'll give you a bit of context as to why I do what I do. I mean, I've been running a LinkedIn marketing business for almost 10 years now. And yeah, that's all we do. That's all I do in my business. And we help businesses get more customers through LinkedIn. And I'm pretty active on the platform with creating content and stuff like that. But when I first got started in LinkedIn, I was working as a salesperson in an online marketing agency. And my boss told me that the best clients that you could possibly get were medical practitioners. And so like being new to the online marketing industry, prior to that, I was living in Asia and working in real estate. I quite naively like just tried to pick up the telephone and reach these surgeons and dentists and found that I couldn't get past the practice manager. And so that I tried, literally going around to each of these medical practices in Melbourne. And again, right at the reception desk is the practice manager stopping me from speaking to the decision maker, the surgeon. And I just joined this LinkedIn thing, and I had a picture of me in a nightclub in Thailand as a profile picture. Like it was not set up correctly or anything like that. And I thought, oh, why don't I try and see if there's any, surgeons or dentists on here? And I did a little bit of a search, found a few in the search results, and I sent out 10 connection requests. I ended up speaking to 6 of the people that I sent the 10 messages to. I had 4 appointments from those 6 messages, and then 6 conversations, and then I made 1 sale. And I thought that was good, made 1 sale, but because it was the ideal client, the transaction size was large relative to everyone else in this particular firm. So when we went to the sales meeting, everyone's going through their sales, and most of the salespeople had made a lot more sales than me, but their average transaction size was like around $2,000-3,000, whereas I'd only made 1 sale, but the transaction size was just below 25,000, because it was the ideal client. And I could see that by targeting the ideal client, I was going to have a lot more success. And so I would send out more messages the next month. And my employers quickly said to me, he said, do you want me to hire somebody to send out these messages on LinkedIn for you so that you can go and spend all your time doing the appointments? I said, yeah, great, fantastic. And it didn't take long before I had so many connections on LinkedIn in the medical industry that I kind of became the online marketing expert for medical practitioners. So it was a lot easier then when I sent out the next connection request to get accepted. Now, just to give you an idea, at this time on LinkedIn, there was only 200 people that could post content at all. So Tony Robbins, Richard Branson, guys like this were considered LinkedIn influencers. They were allowed to post articles. It was just articles, and that was it. And so I was using LinkedIn just literally to connect people and send messages. The reason it was set up like that is because LinkedIn was originally created as a recruitment tool. And, a lot of people would basically upload their resume and recruiters would use it to find talent. And I sort of thought, oh, here I am, using it to get sales leads. And I delegated it to an assistant. We grew that business relatively quickly. And, it was happening. I was getting asked a lot about how to do this LinkedIn thing. I was a part of a networking group in Melbourne on Chapel Street. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm spending an hour coming to this networking group every week. There's 25 people in the room. I can generate a lot more leads in an hour spending it on LinkedIn. So, I got up and I said, oh, sorry, guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to spend my time doing LinkedIn marketing. And then a portion of the people in the networking group came up to me before I left and said, will you if we give you some money, will you teach us how to generate leads on LinkedIn? And I thought, okay, here's an opportunity. But even though I was generating leads for myself, and even though I delegated to an assistant, I didn't really feel like I had that much knowledge to be able to run a course on it. So I'd crammed, studied, similar to what I used to do when I was in university. I used to, I didn't like going to lectures. I like going to the pub. So what I used to do at university is I'd cram like 2 nights before the exam, and I'd pass the exam. So I kind of did that with the LinkedIn training thing. And then Australian, what's it called? The ADMI, Australian Digital Marketing Institute. Yeah, it's not around anymore, but at the time that was like the education place for digital marketers. And they said to me, oh, will you come and create the first LinkedIn course? We want to create this course called LinkedIn Fundamentals. And so I said, okay. And so what would happen is that once a month, I'd go around to every city in Australia, and there'd be a group of business owners or marketers. There'd normally be about 20 or 30 students there waiting for me to deliver this course. And then that's really where I think I honed my skills on LinkedIn, from the perspective of being able to use it for different industries, how things in my industry may not apply to other industries, and so on. And then what happened was LinkedIn said, oh, well, rather than just allowing these 200 content creators to post content, we'll let everyone write articles, and depending on how much response they get, how much engagement they get, we'll decide which ones we show at the top of the newsfeed. So this is when it started to morph into a social media site. And so again, I crammed about, writing articles. I learned what worked in blog posts, and, I tried a few different things, worked out what worked effectively on the platform. And then I had my first article go viral, and it's like, hundreds of thousands of people saw it. And it's like, oh, wow, this is a huge amount of exposure. And at that time, I decided to leave my job and start a business in LinkedIn marketing, because I figured, well, if I've managed to systemize what I'm doing for an assistant to follow, why couldn't I systemize it for businesses to delegate their LinkedIn lead generation to me? And straight off the bat, we just had, great results. I compare it very much to like telemarketing, because when somebody searches on Google for lead generation, even to this day, what they normally find is a bunch of telemarketing companies. And at the time, and it's probably a much lower statistic now, the conversion rate from a telemarketing company, like to get an appointment, just to get an appointment, was only 1%. And we were getting like 15% very conservatively, from the messages we send to businesses to try and set appointments. But like a lot of the, when other marketers and other, salespeople started to do this, and I would see them, the messages that they're using show up in my inbox, and I would see them show up in my client's inbox. And then later on, it became a lot automated. But a lot of them, what they would do is very similar to they would use like email marketing scripts where they start selling to people straight away. And it's just very different to, it's not email, you don't just have one message to get your point across. Generally, if you send somebody a message and say, hey, I've looked at your profile, really interested in what you're doing. I'd be interested in having a coffee with you or having a phone call with you. You don't actually have to explain who you are or why you what you do, because they can just click on your name and read your profile, which you can't do on email. And so we were getting a lot more success than a lot of the salespeople that were using the platform. And then, it grew, and then LinkedIn said, oh, we're going to introduce video. And I thought, oh, great. Because I've seen what, happened on Facebook, and I was quite active on YouTube. So again, learn everything I could about these video things. And then LinkedIn Live came about. And as LinkedIn's popularity grew with marketers, the Social Media Marketing Institute, so see, when I started, there wasn't a social media marketing institute. It was just a digital marketing. So as a Social Media Marketing Institute, they started doing awards each year. So in the second year, I put in a campaign called LinkedIn Heroes, where I was just interviewing different business owners. And I won the LinkedIn category, which brought a lot more attention. And then the next year, the campaign I put in was Monday Night Live, which is a weekly live series, and that won the LinkedIn category again. And this year, on September 16th, we'll find out, if I can pull it off a third year in a row, because I'm in the finals. We'll see what happens. Yeah, fingers crossed. So I guess like focusing on one platform's allowed me to, hone my skills, and running campaigns for different industries has allowed me to see, what works in different industries, and whether or not it will work for certain businesses. LinkedIn certainly lends itself more to business, but having said that, there's always, partnership opportunities. Like in business to consumer, we've managed to set up distribution channels or partnerships with businesses that have similar clients. And so if I look at LinkedIn today, there's a lot more salespeople using it. There's a lot of spam coming through. There's a lot of messages that come through, which is an opportunity, because obviously if you do it the right way, you do stand out from the crowd. But I think while I was generating these leads for clients and I was posting these articles and posting these videos, I was constantly asking myself, because what happens with the content side of things is you position yourself as an industry leader, and then the companies that come to you that want LinkedIn training or LinkedIn marketing, it wasn't like when I started, when they're like, oh, we're going to 2 or different 3 online marketing companies. We're going to look at all their proposals and work out which is the best. Generally, if they've been watching my content, they kind of decided that I'm the one that they want to hire. And they're not really negotiating on price at all. Like that discussion doesn't come up very often. And so I was thinking to myself, how do I offer this to clients? Because it's a lot of work. Like content marketing is a lot of work, especially the way I was doing it at the start. Like I would literally just be going from post to post to post. And so these days, I offer a content marketing service for my clients, which allows them to really differentiate themselves from other businesses. And I think, it's probably a lot to do with, what you guys are doing with Profit First is having a point of difference in a marketplace where, a lot of people, it can seem like a lot of people are doing the same thing. Content's a great way to do it. You can increase the number of clients, you can increase the value of clients, and you could probably sell to them more often as well for a few reasons. One is because they position you, because you're positioned as an authority, but also what happens with content marketing is you're constantly getting this feedback from your audience in the comments. And so you learn what their needs are a lot quicker, I find. And so the way that I managed to create a service for a client, which, traditionally was very time consuming, and you guys probably find can be very time consuming as well, is I've structured like an interview with them for 1 hour, and I ask them questions, and each question is designed to create an answer that will be one piece of content. So from an hour long interview, I can create like 20 or 30 short videos, which are ideal for social media, just about one thing. We put the subtitles in and the branded intro and stuff like that. And so I think, every content, if you are going into content marketing, it can, to avoid it, first of all, you want it to be effective, and second of all, you don't want to be spending a huge amount of time coming up with content ideas all the time. So I'm a big believer in like batch creating content, like creating a stack of content all at once that could literally last 3 months. But once you get in the habit of doing that batch creation, where you're creating like lots of videos at once, and ideally you would send it off to like a video editor, and they would do all of the editing and chopping it all up and all that sort of stuff. So you're only using your time for the actual content, what you're actually saying. And then what will happen is once you get in the habit of doing that, first of all, you'll end up with like I've got a few of these hard drives sitting behind the computer with lots of different content on it that I haven't posted yet because of these batch creation sessions. But what the key is, and if any of you have ever come across a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, like he's really nailed this, is when you post each video or you post each image or you post each article, is just to monitor like what's being said in the comments. And you look at first of all, who's commenting. You want to know, like, are they in the target market to start with? So if you get that part wrong, and you see people commenting who aren't in your target market, you got to be careful not to start molding your content to suit people that aren't in your target market at all. So first of all, you want to make sure they're the right people. And then what will happen is you'll notice, like if you post 3 times a week over a month, there'll be a couple of posts that really stand out, that are really engaging topics that people want to hear more about. And so next time you do your batch creation of content, you just focus in more on those topics. And the reason I mentioned Gary Vee is because when he started posting content, he was literally just talking about business, and now he talks about, you know, parenting, opinions of other people, and all these things which the audience have given him feedback on that they want to hear more about. And he posts 100 times a day, so the rate at which he's getting feedback is a lot faster than anyone else. So therefore he's able to like optimize his content a lot quicker. I mean, we don't need to create 100 times a day, but we can use the same sort of creation strategy that he uses, where he does the batch creation thing. Most of the time he's doing live talks, you know, and then he chops them up. But like when you can kind of tell when he's doing his live talks, he's almost structuring them to be created into micro content, the way he jumps around from topic to topic. And that's the same sort of thing that we try to do with the interview. So I'm a big believer in content creation. It's the service for my clients which is growing the fastest at the moment. The lead generation stuff works, like if you're targeted, and I think like it really helps to have a niche. You know, so obviously when I started my LinkedIn business, well, not obviously, but it wasn't suited to medical practitioners. Even though like I had a lot of those guys in my audience, I had to shift gears because they weren't B2B, they were B2C. So I focused on financial services for the first couple of years in business, and similar sort of thing happened. I just, you know, got so many contacts in that industry by adding connections. And you know, within my first 11 months in business, I signed Westpac up as a client just because I seemed like the expert in that area. And they got me to fly around Australia training their different licensees, which you know was awesome. But I mean, that wouldn't have happened if I was targeting every B2B industry. Like I, you know, had to hone in on financial services to get that outcome. And I think a lot of people, a lot of business owners are quite scared to niche because they think, oh, well, if I say I do LinkedIn for financial services, then it means I don't do other stuff. And it is, I went through exactly the same thing, but in the long run, I can tell you that that's a great way to differentiate yourself by focusing on a niche. And when you're sending somebody a message and you're saying, hey, you know, I want to talk to you about your marketing, or I want to talk to you about your accounting, having that point of difference where, you know, you can say, okay, well, you know, I actually, you know, do bookkeeping specifically for this kind of business, makes the response rate a lot higher. So it still works. The messaging, people are still checking their LinkedIn messages. They just don't want to get sales pitches, and they don't want to get automated messages. So the way I look at it from a sales perspective is my rule of thumb is you don't sell to people until they've told you that they have the problem that you solve. And so until then, you're just curious and you're asking questions. And the best way to ask those questions is on the telephone. So generally with the LinkedIn messages, I'm trying to just get them on the phone, you know. Whereas I think there's a lot of social media guys that are active on social media that are like afraid of jumping on the telephone. They just want to go back and forth on messages, but you've really got no control of the sales process in that regard. So I think my sales background has served me well in that respect, because people will come back and they're like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to know? And it's like, well, that's what, let's have a chat about it. That's what the call's for. They're like, well, how much does it cost? You know, I'm like, well, let's have a call. I'm always, you know, and these days it's systemized with a calendar booking link. So, you know, I just send them back the calendar booking link, and throughout the week, you know, these 15-minute time slots will get filled up. And when I get on that telephone call, because if you're not telling them too much about what the call's about, you've very quickly got to frame the conversation, because they'll be like on there going, I don't really know what I'm doing here. And I always just say, look, you know, the purpose of today's call is for me to find out a little bit more about your business, see if it's a good fit for us to work together or not. Is it okay if I ask you some questions? And they're like, oh, okay, yep, you've got a structure. Yes, sure, fire away. And then, you know, I ask them questions that will uncover whether or not they've got the problem that I solve. So, you know, for what I do, for example, it'd be like, you know, are you happy with the number of clients that you're getting from LinkedIn? You know, they say no. Okay. Would you like to know more about how I can help you with that? If they say no again, I'll say, okay, no worries, see you later. But like, if they say yes, you've got permission then to tell them about what you do. And that's what works. going straight into like, you should really talk to me because I can help you get a lot more leads on LinkedIn before you even know if they want any lead. They may not want leads. They may already have LinkedIn marketing. They may just not be. Most of the time, even if they are interested, they'll have their guard up because people are on social media. If they're getting messages, the first thing they're thinking of is this guy trying to take something from me, or is he trying to add value? And you want to make sure you're on the right side of that coin. So the biggest there's a few big mistakes that people make, which kind of anything on LinkedIn kind of comes back to these mistakes. If you get these wrong, like the whole thing kind of falls apart. And you'll hear a lot of people tell you, oh, LinkedIn marketing doesn't work. I've tried it. It's a waste of time. They may have even spent money with a LinkedIn marketing agency. A lot of them have. The pain's definitely a lot more if you have, and it didn't work. And they'll say, oh, all I get is sales letters, and all I get is people offering me jobs. My clients aren't on there. They're not on there. And LinkedIn's only as good as your network. So if you hop on and you get all these notifications and people are sending you connection requests, and if you're spending 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn, it's quite easy to spend your 15 minutes just responding to those notifications. I've got a couple of comments here. People are sending me connection requests. I'll accept, maybe reject a couple, but the fact that they're the ones that have sent you the connection request, you're still being reactive. And so you will end up with a lot of salespeople, because that's most of the time, like if people are sending connection requests that you don't know, they're not necessarily going to be in your target market. They'll probably be salespeople. There might be people looking to recruit for jobs. They may want to take you out on a date, but they'll have their own self-serving reason as to why they want to do it. And so you can end up with this network, and a lot of people say in my events as well, oh, Nathaniel, I've got 10,000 connections. What do I need you for? It doesn't really tell me anything. I mean, they can have if they have 10,000 connections that are all salespeople, their experience on LinkedIn is going to be very different than somebody who's got 10,000 connections that are all in, financial services, and they're all directors, and they're all in Perth, for example. And so it comes down to the quality of your network. So at the moment, LinkedIn's caught on to the fact that a lot of salespeople are using it. And so they've restricted the number of connection requests you can send a week. So you can only send 100 connection requests per week. Well, that's what it seems to be. This has only been introduced in the last couple of months. So I would make use of those 100 invitations, but just be really targeted about it. I mean, the first people you want to add into your network are people that you already know and the people that you already do business with. And then you've got this first degree network, which is quite high quality. They're people that you've done business with. There are people that you've met in person, and then you've got visibility of your second degree network, which is basically everyone that they know. So it's potential referral network. When I was selling real estate in Thailand, I remember very clearly, I actually was quite a good strategy. But when somebody bought a property from me, I'd say, can you think of anyone else that would like to buy a house in Thailand, right? And there would be 3 spots at the bottom of the contract for them to rack their brain and think of anyone that might be interested in buying a house. And every now and then I would get an extra sale from it. So it was a worthwhile system. But these days, I'm in B2B, and I can have if a client's doing really well, I could have a look at all of their LinkedIn connections and pick out the absolute ideal ones. I could say, well, can you introduce me to this guy, and this guy, which is just a lot more targeted. And even if I didn't get the introduction to those people, if I literally sent them a connection request and say, hey, we're both connected to one of my clients, this guy, we both know the same person, I'd love to connect, or I'd love to have a chat. Just the fact that you have somebody that you know in common makes a big difference. And so you'll see a lot of connection requests being sent out that were like, we got mutual connections, let's connect. But if you go a little bit further than that, or who is the mutual connections? How do you know each other? Are you in the same city? Because the goal with all this online market, or even in business, the goal with all of your marketing is not automation, it's personalization. The only reason that businesses use automation is because they get to a certain size where it's very hard to be personalized. And so they use automation to try and keep being personalized. But if you're a small business owner, your advantage is you can be more personalized. And so I think there's a lot of small businesses owners out there that spend a lot of time trying to get their like funnel right or their, you know, email automation right, and it just becomes less personalized. I've paused on the screen. Have I paused for you?
Yes. We can hear you though.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Zoom got really excited with what you're saying, that it's just paused you at that point.
That's weird, isn't it?
WA, wait a while.
I'll just stop the video and start it again. That'll help. Now I'm black.
That's okay. We can remember what. There you are. You're back. Yay!
Cool. It's a beautiful day here in Perth. I'm just like behind the cameras. Beautiful blue sky. I'm just having a look through the comments here, see if there's what's the ideal posting pattern per week on LinkedIn. Great question, Neil. That's a really good question. I think, you know, the most important thing is to be consistent. So, you know, if you're gonna post twice a week or 3 times a week, I'd be creating the next month's worth of content before you even start, just so that you can be consistent with it and you're not panicking on the day of what to post. Yeah, I believe in like creating a content calendar. It's very simple. It just looks like a normal 30-day calendar, and you just pop in video there's this day, image this day, and you just go create them. So with the images, you know, they don't necessarily have to be of you. Like it's not, you know, like Instagram, like LinkedIn, you're sharing thoughts. People are in the business mindset, so it could literally be motivational quotes or quotes about leadership, or like leadership is a very popular topic. It's going to be very relatable. Like if you search on Google Images for quotes about leadership, the ones that show up at the top, they probably will get engagement, because, you know, the most popular quotes, if people are in your network, they probably have something to say about them. But what you want to do is just in the caption is just share your own thoughts on it, or, you know, what you learn from it, so that so you are building your own brand at the same time. One of the things which I always knew that the caption was very important when you posted on LinkedIn, and it never really occurred to me why until I did this event with an Instagram specialist, Brooke Vilinovich. And I was thinking, yeah, when you do Instagram, the image comes up first and then it's a caption. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's the caption that comes up first, then it's the video or the image. So the caption is quite important. Definitely even more important if you're posting videos, because a lot of the people that, you know, they probably just scan over the caption and go, okay, am I going to press play on this thing? And just some interesting statistics when it comes to video, like on social media, the average view duration, like, is, so after 10 seconds, 50% of people watching generally have stopped watching already. So you've got to make sure that the first 10 seconds is relatively engaging. I mean, that's the average. Just keep in mind, most videos are not very good, because the average engagement rate on a video is 0.1%. So you don't see a lot of the rubbish videos. When you look at your newsfeed, what you're seeing is the best videos, because they're getting the most engagement. After a minute, it's 80% is the average of people that have stopped watching. You know, I work with a lot of clients and I look at their video content, and quite often it takes them a minute to get started to what they're talking about, you know. And so the first thing I say is just chop that bit off, you know, let's get straight into it. We don't need to know why you're doing the video, or like where you are, or, you know, even as little as like, you know, hi, it's Nathanial Bibby, Managing Director of Bibby Consulting Group. Yeah, we know who you are. You're posting from your feed, you know, you get straight into it. Can you do group video posts? What's the different ways to use video on LinkedIn? Group video posts. Group video posts. One of the things that like is a big opportunity at the moment, I'd encourage you all to look, if you are going to do video content on LinkedIn, is applying for LinkedIn Live. You have got to apply for it, but it's not that difficult to get. LinkedIn just want to make sure that the people that are getting live video have a bit of an idea of what they're doing, mainly because they're pushing live video out to your entire network. They're giving it preferential content. because it's on Facebook. Like when they introduced live video, it increased engagement on the platform by almost 30% or something. And it's actually the same on TV. Like the most popular TV events of the year are like live. So the Super Bowl or the live news, or, you know, that live has always been really popular. So like if the way, I don't know how difficult it is now. I think it's a lot easier to get LinkedIn live, but I got rejected the first couple of times I applied for it. And I was just racked my brain. I was thinking, what are they looking for here? Then I thought, oh, they're probably looking for experience. So I got onto Facebook and I did a couple of lives there. And then I said, oh, look, I'm doing lives over here. And then they approved me. So, you know, if you're having trouble getting approved, maybe just do a couple lives on Facebook and show them that you've done it before. And by the way, with those live videos, yeah, you can do them with other people. Like if you're asking about, can you do group video posts? Their LinkedIn events has really evolved in the last few months. So if you set up an event on LinkedIn at the moment, you can invite up to 1,000 of your connections per week, very instantaneously. And it shows up like where they would normally see their connection requests. And so like the first time I saw that, I was like, okay, I'll set up an event for, like, it was like a Tuesday, and I set it up for a Friday and invited 1,000 people. And there was like 400 people showed up to this webinar. So I was like, this is awesome. You know, people that would not normally come across my content. And so what they're doing with it now is they're integrating live video with LinkedIn events. So you can actually schedule events more than a week into the future, because up until now you could only schedule a live within a 7-day time frame. So you can do that, you know, way in advance now, which just gives you enough time to invite people. And then as it approaches the date of the event, LinkedIn will send them reminders, you know, like tomorrow's the event starting in 15 minutes. And to date, this is most effective with free events, like online events, webinars. What will probably happen soon is they'll integrate a payment system like Eventbrite, and then LinkedIn will overtake Eventbrite. There's no questions asked, because it's just you got the network there. It's amazing, you know, like the way that it's evolving. I think LinkedIn's going to be taking over the events space online for sure, especially in the business world. Just looking through the comments here. LinkedIn is only good as your network. That's a good one. Yeah, to find your target audience. Okay, so finding your target audience. I've been doing this such a long time. This is just sort of take this for granted, but sometimes this isn't so obvious. The search feature on LinkedIn, like if you go to the top search bar, if you type in a keyword into there, what it'll do is it'll look through your network, and it'll generally show you people in your first degree network first, then your second degree network. So it'll crawl that entire profile looking for that keyword. And the more times that keyword's mentioned, the higher up in the profile it's mentioned, the more likely it is to show it up at the top of the search results. So this is, you know, you can look at this from two sides, how to find people, and also how to optimize your own profile so that when people are searching for what you do, you show up at the top. But if you click on the advanced search feature, as it's changed now. The tab's not called advanced anymore. It's called filters. So you click on filters, and then you can start to really narrow down. It's like, well, where do I want that keyword to be showing up in this person's profile? So you might, you know, if and you can select industries. So I might select, you know, financial services industry, and then in their job title, I might put in, okay, I want them to be a managing director, or I want them to be a founder, or I want them to be a CEO. And they all sound like the same sort of job, but there's actually, you're going to get different search results because it's what people refer to themselves as. And what I found is, like, founders are generally, you know, there's a lot more in the tech industry than normally startups. So quite often, like if you're like I've done some work with capital raising businesses, and they're looking for businesses that want to raise capital. I've found that founders want to raise capital a lot more than managing directors and CEOs. CEOs generally larger organizations. Managing directors, I've found in my experience that they're business owners that are actively managing the business. They're generally, like, you know, in the small to medium size type range. Very, very good example of who to target, because they generally can make the decision. Like CEOs, there might be other people involved in the decision-making process. It might be a bit of a longer sales cycle. Managing directors, normally the buck stops with them, I found. But you want to put managing director in inverted commas. So what it's very similar to Google. Like if you put it in inverted commas, it tells LinkedIn that managing and director have to be, those two keywords have to be in that order. Because what will happen otherwise is you'll get people that have got like marketing director or like operations manager, and just all these variations of those two words will start showing up in a search result. And you can put CEO or managing director or founder. You just have to put "or" in capital letters. So that's a bit of a little trick for you when you're searching. And then you narrow down by location as well. So you've narrowed down by industry, you've narrowed down by job title, and then you can narrow down by what city they're in. And you can go as far as what company they work for if you want to. The other filter that I would consider using is relationship, and it will say first, second, or third. And so first means your first degree connections, people that you're already connected to. So if you want to search for people that you already know, that you can already message for free, then you would use first degree. If you want to add people to your network and connect with people, then I would suggest going for second degree, because they're the ones that have mutual connections with you. And what you'll find is, like, if you do a search for that specific in your second degree network, you may only get like 50 people or 100 people show up, and people will be like, oh, I've done those 50, send them all connection requests. Now I've exhausted everything. But what happens is, if you send those 50 connection requests and say 20 of them connect with you, you do the same search again next week, you actually see more people in the search results, because you've got 20 more connections in that industry. Your second degree network has expanded. And so the more people you have connected with you in a specific, especially if you do it in a specific industry, the more people you will find showing up in the search results. So don't be fooled. Like if you think somebody's not on LinkedIn, you've searched for their name and they're not showing up. They may be on LinkedIn. They probably are. They just might not be in your immediate network, because if they're not in your first or second degree connections, quite often they won't show up. Yeah, so searches is really important, and that enables you to have a good quality network. And then the other thing is just your profile. Like a lot of people jump over the LinkedIn profile because it's quite I can totally understand why you would have a copy of your resume up there. It's kind of what LinkedIn's suggesting when you join, right? Is you just upload a version of your resume, which is great if you're looking to get a job. But if you're looking to connect with customers, I always say to people, like, have you ever bought anything because you walked into a shop and somebody's given you as their CV? It's one of the most boring bits of information you could give someone. People don't need to know all your history, what your roles were in the past. They just want to know how you can help them. One thing you can guarantee they're all interested in is themselves. So you got to just word it in the value proposition to them. Which would probably be very similar to what's on your website. I would just make it a bit more personalized. So in your about section, you write it in first person, and you want to try and build some social proof and trust. You want to build some trust. So like you can do it by saying, I won best use of LinkedIn and all this sort of stuff. That's one way to do it. Or you can just explain why you do what you do. Because if you explain, why you do what you do, people are a lot more likely to trust you than if you just say, this is what I do. And it helps you stand out, so it's explain to people why you're passionate about what you do, who you serve. And then the third thing really that you want to do on your LinkedIn profile is just tell people what to do next. We all know, like on websites, like if you go to a good web developer or a web designer, they'll have a conversion objective with each page. And it might be to fill in a form, might be to make a phone call. And with the LinkedIn profile, you just want to do the same thing. So you tell people what to do next. So I've read it and I'm like, yes, I'm looking for bookkeeping. Yes, I'm in that industry. Yes, I've got that frustration. And then it doesn't tell me what to do next. Then the conversion rate will just drop, because they've got to do some thinking, which, you want to just do all the thinking for them. So if you want them to go to your website, just tell them, say, for more information, go here. If you want them to call you, say, for more information, call me. So it doesn't have to be like a big sales pitch or anything like that. You could have a lead magnet on there, like, so, for this free download, click here, and then that will help build your database if you've got that funnel thing set up. But there's no point doing it if you haven't got that funnel thing set up. You're much better off just getting them to message you or going straight to a phone call. Again, this is coming back to being more personalized and starting conversation with people. So if people are looking at your profile, if people are commenting on what you've posted, there's a great opportunity for you to start a conversation with them, send them a private message. It's totally fine on LinkedIn to do that. What may seem a little bit weird to do on Facebook, for example, can be okay on LinkedIn, because it is a business networking site. The same people are on there to network, so it's totally okay for you to approach people. You just got to do it in a way that doesn't assume that they have a need for your service and start pitching to them right away. That's the biggest thing. So I've been rambling for 45 minutes, haven't I?
No, this is perfect, because you're answering all of the questions, and it is you've actually simplified it for me in terms of, when I first started on LinkedIn, I'm like, this is a beast. Like, I'm gonna have to do all of these things, but really you've brought it right back to 3 things that your profile has to have. And Stephen's asked a question, what is the big difference between Facebook and LinkedIn from a marketing perspective, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main thing is Facebook is a social platform for friends to hang out with each other, whereas LinkedIn is a social platform for business people to network with each other. So that's the first thing. But the other thing is, like, Facebook's just 3 or 4 years ahead of LinkedIn. So on Facebook, we could reach most of our followers or connections by just throwing a post up there from our business page. But if any of you got a business page on Facebook, you'll know now that you don't get many views when you post something. It doesn't matter how big your network is. In fact, I interviewed a guy called Jules Lund, who's the founder of Tribe. He had the most successful radio show in Australia at one point, called Fifi and Jules, and he ran the Facebook page for it, and it was the most popular Facebook page in Australia. Like, it had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people following it, and he would create content and post on there all the time. And pretty much overnight, like, the organic reach just dropped, and he's like, he goes, I never owned that audience. He's built it up, and now he's got to pay to reach them. But whereas on LinkedIn, it's still at a point now where you can post something and reach, your entire network. And it's got to be like, just got to get a little bit of engagement at the start. That's it. Once you get a little bit of engagement, your audience will see it. So I think it's just a bigger opportunity on LinkedIn at the moment, just because it's a little bit more immature. And I don't think it'll last. Like, I don't think, this is a good sign. Like, the 100 connection request limit per week is a sign that things are starting to change. And so LinkedIn they just want to give their users this good experience. They want to keep people on the platform. So if you post something, it's not just going to show it to everyone. It's going to show it to like a portion of your network. And let's just say you've got 100 people that you're connected to. It might show it to 10, shows it to 10 people. You get a like and a couple of comments. They go, okay, it's relatively interesting. We'll show it to 50 people. And if it continues to get engagement, then they'll show it to 100 people. Now, if the engagement's like a lot higher, and if, let's say 30% of people are commenting on it, it'll show it beyond your network and show it to other people that it thinks that your content will be interested in. People will be interested in your content, and that's how you get something to go viral. And I'm completely open-minded to this, but I don't know if that's possible on Facebook anymore. I don't think you can go viral anymore on Facebook. But like, I might be wrong. There might be somebody doing it. Maybe the algorithm has changed. But on LinkedIn, I'm seeing it all the time. People are getting heaps of brand exposure and growing their followers a lot quicker than I did. A lot of the followers that I have, I was sending connection requests before this limit came in. For many years. And hopefully people like some of the content I'm putting out, so it continues to get engagement. But it's been a huge amount of work building my network, whereas I've seen some people come onto the platform and literally within a couple of years, they've got 10, 15,000 followers, so It's definitely possible, but you don't need that many followers. Just so it's clear, like a lot of the time, people think that you need, huge amount of followers. It's not really the amount of followers. If you've got like 500 people that are all engaged, who know who you are, who will drive across town to have a coffee with you, it's way more valuable than 20,000 connections that, will just hit like and maybe comment.
That's awesome. And I think what like my experience has been, it's been very, very spammy, but I'm noticing a real change now. Like I happened to get a speaking gig off LinkedIn because someone had looked up Clockwork or whatever, which is one of Mike's books, and they didn't see anyone within Australia who could possibly talk about that. But because I was connected to someone, like it was so random. And then they're like, hey, and I looked at the thing and I'm like, this is actually like a legitimate thing. And you're right. I think what we try to do is keep it in LinkedIn, whereas my success has absolutely been, all right, you connect and then you take it off LinkedIn, and that seems to work well. So the fact that you've shared that is really amazing. So thank you. Craig's asked another question. He's saying, what are your thoughts on LinkedIn pods to increase engagement?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Again, thanks for asking that, Craig. LinkedIn pods, like the concept, so just so everyone knows what a pod is, like generally, and a LinkedIn pod is based, like the owner of the pod or the manager of the pod will kind of make up the rules, but generally this is the way they work, is a bunch of people will join a group, and there might be like a message chat, and every day, like I'll post a link to a post in there, and everybody in the pod likes and comments on it, and then I'll do the same back to them. So rather than the value that you're providing being the actual content, the value that you're providing is engaging on their content. So it's kind of like a trade. So it makes sense because obviously the algorithm will then pick up your post and show it to more people. The thing that you've got to be careful of, and this is why I left. Well, I tried this pod thing like must have been 3 years ago now, I think, for a while. And what I just noticed was I was getting a lot of engagement, but they were like, what I was saying before, it's like, you got to look at the comments, see if these people are in your target audience or not. And I was thinking, all these people aren't going to buy from me. I've got to be careful, because if I start catering my content to them, I'm going to move further away from who my real audience is. And so I decided to leave the pod. And sure enough, all of them just stopped following me. So like, just so like the value that I was providing was definitely the likes and comments. They weren't interested in my content at all. And it was a big drop in the numbers, like likes and comments all went really low, and took a while to build back. But the sales that I made from the content I was posting, like went up. All of a sudden I was creating content for my prospects, of people I wanted to serve, not people that just wanted me to pat them on their back, and they pat me on that. So like if you had an engagement pod full of your customers, that would work, I guess, So I don't want people to think that I'm like anti-engagement pods. It's just the way that most of them are being run. And I've found that it can be difficult to learn what your audience wants if you're skewing the data and the feedback you're getting back. So I generally would encourage people just to stick at it. Even if you're not getting a huge amount of engagement, at least you're getting real feedback so that you can learn and post better quality content. Because you could quite easily join engagement pods, spend all day on LinkedIn liking and commenting on other people's stuff and not make any money. There's a lot of people doing that. I know people with 700,000 followers spend 3 hours a day on LinkedIn that can't pay their rent. You don't want to be in that situation. So yeah, I just be very mindful of, that sort of stuff. Like there's other hacks you can use to get engagement fast, hashtags, tagging people in your posts if they're relevant. But I think, the best quality content creators, they go through that phase where they're not getting much engagement and no one's liking their stuff. And that's how they learn what works and what doesn't. And just so you know as well, like LinkedIn have a team of people in, I think in San Francisco, that meet once a week that are trying to stamp this stuff out. So it's only going to last for like a while until LinkedIn figure out how to make the algorithm. They just want to serve the users better content, and a lot of that stuff that's getting engagement, just from engagement pods, is not necessarily good content. So it'll just be very similar to like Instagram. Those like a lot of the influencers that built up bought lots of followers, or they had Instagram pods that they've just been stamped out now, really. That it just won't work in the long run. And I've got plenty of stories about how this has worked on other platforms and stuff. But yeah, that's basically in a nutshell what I think about engagement pods.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I want to be cognizant of your time. How can people find out more about what you do, work with you? What I understand you have a course and that sort of stuff. Can you tell us a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, like at the start of COVID, I realized I got to move a lot of my stuff online. So I built this website called nathanielbibby.com. The best course on there is LinkedIn Insider 2.0. It's the most recent. I've created content to basically help businesses become a master of LinkedIn. All you got to do is go through the course. There's 14 training modules, I think, in that particular course. So that's a great online course to look into. And then if you want some help creating content, this service that I talked about where I'm interviewing business owners is available as well. It's called Behind the Brand. It works out to be from $140 a video. So it's like, it's one of the cheapest services you'll find, but also one of the most effective. I remember the first video production company I hired to create a video for me. It was 2 to 3 minutes. It was the cheapest video I could find. It was $5,000. It's still on my website, but by creating lots of videos at once, it just makes it efficient. It's a little bit like cooking cheeseburgers at McDonald's, just better quality.
No, I love that. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So yeah, Aisha said that she paid $5,000 USD for her first book video and didn't like it. So
oh, no.
One other question for you, if I may. If someone's like, okay, I need to get on LinkedIn, but like, where do I start? What would your recommendation be?
Just go, like when you sign up to LinkedIn, it will suggest to you what you need to do to fill out your profile. Just give you LinkedIn what it wants in terms of building the profile up, set up the profile, and then just go about growing your network. You want to, just growing your network with the people you already know. If you can, sync it up to your email database, sync it up so you can grow in your foundation relatively quickly. And then just start, once you've got a network, start posting some content. And, depending on what type of business you're in, you could use it to generate leads. I mean, it's going to be way better use of your time than cold emailing people, cold calling people, messaging people on Facebook. You're going to get a much higher value prospect on LinkedIn. And by the way, there's something called a digital trust index, which monitors how much people trust the content on different social media platforms. And LinkedIn is 3 times higher than the second rated most trusted social platforms. People trust the content on there a lot more. The average income of a LinkedIn member is a lot higher than the other platforms. So if you are going to use anything for lead generation, I'd be focusing your efforts on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll be popping links with this recording in the university so that you can get direct access to Nathaniel's website. And as I said before, you have simplified this so much compared to, what we all think when we first look at LinkedIn, because, Facebook has been comfortable for a period of time and we are on there for other things and that sort of stuff. And it feels like you're going into the complete deep end in LinkedIn. So I'd love to see all of you jump onto your LinkedIn, update your profile with the, 3 things that Nathaniel has said, which is who you are, but what you do and what's next, like what's the problem that you can solve. I love it. Thank you so much. And I can see you've got some thank yous in the comments as well. So I know that Najma highly rates everything that you do. So we really appreciate the time that you've taken to come and speak to us today. And I absolutely look forward to seeing what happens on LinkedIn now. So thank you for your time. Awesome.
You're welcome. Thanks very much for having me.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend and I'll see you online soon. Thank you.